what it seems like you're describing is a Fed policy that had minimal to no benefit or potentially was ultimately damaging to working class people, but the unwinding of which could do profound harm to working class, middle class people. So what does it look like when ultimately, eventually, whether it's now or in the future, the rubber hits the road, the debt has to be paid, and the Fed tries to unwind what they've been doing?
I mean, okay, it's not good. And so, first of all, to back up, the leftist progressives at McKinsey did a study of quantitative easing in 2012 and found that quantitative easing had directly subsidized the corporate debt markets to the tune of about $300 billion. At the same time, quantitative easing had simultaneously punished households that were trying to save money to the tune of 360 billion. Because, for folks trying to get by on a pension or a savings account or, life insurance where money is essentially saved, they face a huge punishment because there's simply no upside in saving anymore, while the debt merchants on Wall Street and the kind of debt engineers at private equity firms get an enormous, enormous subsidy from this. So this is a decade of the middle class. And I mean, it just sounds like a cliche, but like all the numbers say this. Wages are stagnating. If you're making an earning these days through a paycheck rather than by owning assets, unfortunately, you're falling behind, particularly now with inflation running so hot. So we have a decade of lost advancement for the middle class. And then we have another reckoning, another financial bubble that could potentially collapse in almost an identical fashion to what was starting to happen in 2020, to what did happen in 2008, to what did happen in 1999 with the dot-com bubble. And the fallout from these financial crashes, which are stoked by the Fed, the fallout is just tremendous for working people because it's not just the taxpayer money that has to be funneled in to bail out the banking system time and again. It's the long hangover that actually Ben Bernanke has done a lot of original research on. He calls it the debt overhang, which means after a financial bubble collapses, you have years of weak growth as debt is paid down and as you kind of emerge from the debt-driven crisis. So there is absolutely no positive argument to be made in my mind for lancing this bubble. What I mean to say is, if interest rates rise, if quantitative easing is withdrawn and the markets downwardly adjust, it will be a bad thing. It is not something that people should be eager to see or joyful about, because it's really going to hurt a lot of people's finances. And that, to me, as a business reporter, having covered this economy since, a long time, but I mean, definitely since 2008, it's just like households can't withstand another 5 years of weak growth. So there's no joy to be taken in the devastating impacts of a correction if it happens. And I think that this is just another reason, this is why I wanted to kind of go back and study, how did this happen? How did we get here? What are the mechanics that got us to this point? So we can at least look at it rationally as it starts to happen.
I hate to say this, but based on the conversation and everything that we've learned about the Fed, it almost strikes me that, to your point, going all the way back to, the genesis of all this stuff, it's almost like any other situation would have been better. Namely, if we never created the Fed, certainly in its current iteration, or if we went even further and instead of having a central bank, just nationalize all the banks. Am I wrong in that?
Well, okay.
I'll take that as a yes.